Hello Explorers, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. In this episode, I am going to dive into the current struggles between China and the United States of America in the continent of Africa. Why France is no longer a superpower, it's a regional power at the moment. If you look at the current strategic countries and more importantly the three major superpowers in the world, Russia, China, and also the United States of America, how these three countries are battling it out in the continent of Africa. But today, I am going to look at the long-standing relationship between China and the continent of Africa and why this particular relationship has drawn eyebrows across the geopolitical spectrum and more importantly, Africa's geopolitical partners around the world. In this episode, I'm going to dive into detailed research, give you more analysis like never before seen. And if you like videos like this, I will encourage you to smash the like button, share the video, because we have enough to cover today. Today, I really want to cut out the noise. So without any much delay, let's just dive straight into it.
As China and the United States of America battle over Africa, a new Cold War is emerging in the region, this time in a different continent. The growing presence of China in Africa has captured the attention of both Africa and the West, as Chinese trade and investment have eclipsed those of Europe and the United States of America. These leaders have warned that Beijing is exploiting African resources, threatening African jobs, bolstering African dictators, and showing general disregard for human rights, good governance, and sound environmental practices. While leveling the same criticism, African civil society organizations have noted with irony that the Western countries have long engaged in similar practices in the past couple of years. Chinese interests in Africa and Western concern about Beijing's influence are not new. Understanding the current standoff requires an understanding of its history. The most recent wave of Chinese interest in Africa began during the Cold War. In April of 1955, representatives of 29 Asian and African nations and territories and numerous liberation movements met in Bandung, Indonesia at the Conference of Asian and African States. Participants resolved to oppose colonialism and imperialism and to promote economic and cultural cooperation throughout the Global South, then called the Third World countries. They voiced particular support for decolonization and national liberations in Africa. China played a key role in conference and also engaged with Africans in the Bandung spirit of African-Asian solidarity and cooperation. Between early 1960 and the mid-1970s, China offered grants and low-interest loans for development projects in Algeria, Egypt, Ghana, and Guinea, and also Mali, including Tanzania and Zambia. It also sent tens of thousands of barefooted doctors, agricultural technicians, and solidarity work brigades to African countries that rejected neocolonialism and had been rebuffed by the West. In Southern Africa, where white minority rule persisted in settlers' colonies and Portugal resisted African demand for independence, Beijing provided liberation movement in Mozambique and Rhodesia with military training, advisory, and also weapons. When Western countries ignored Zambia's plea to more effectively isolate the renegade regimes, China established the Tanzanian-Zambian Railway Authority, known as TAZARA, and built a railroad that permitted Zambia to export its copper through Tanzania rather than white-ruled Rhodesia and South Africa. During the Cold War, as Chinese sought allies in the global arena, its policies were motivated primarily by politics. After the Cold War, however, China's priorities changed. Beijing had embarked on a massive program of industrialization and economic development that transformed the Chinese economy into one of the world's most powerful. Africa was no longer viewed as an ideological proving ground. Instead, it was valued as a source of raw material and a market for Chinese goods, ranging from clothing, cell phones, and electronics to artificial intelligence systems. Chinese relationship with Africa was no longer one that showed sympathy for its plight. but instead mimic those of the colonial and Cold War powers. Countries were valued according to what they could offer. By the first decade of the 21st century, China has surpassed the United States as Africa's largest trading partner, and more recently as Africa's fourth largest source of direct foreign investment, in exchange for guaranteed access to energy resources, agricultural land, and strategic material necessary to produce electronic devices and electric vehicles. China has spent billions of dollars on African infrastructure, developing and rehabilitating roads, railways and dams, bridges, ports, and also oil pipelines and terminals and refineries, power plants, water systems, and telecommunication networks. Chinese enterprises have also constructed hospitals and schools and invested in clothing and food processing industry, agriculture, fisheries, commercial real estate, also and retail and tourism. Recently, investments have focused on communication technology and wind and solar power. If you look at other strategic options, unlike Western powers and international financial institutions they dominated, Beijing has not made political and economic restructuring a condition for its loan, investment aid, and also trade, although it has required that public work contracts be awarded to Chinese companies and that Chinese suppliers be used. The agreement have not required a shift in economic models, adherence to democratic principles, respect for human rights, and or other implementation of labor and environmental protection. While Beijing's non-interference policy had been popular in ruling circles, civil society organizations have frequently criticized them. African labor, business, civil society, and human rights organizations have observed that Chinese firms have driven African-owned enterprises out of business and employ Chinese workers rather than local ones. When they do hire African labor, Chinese businesses have paid poverty-level wages under conditions that have not endangered workers' health and also safety. If you look at strategic options, moreover, the infrastructural projects have resulted in massive debt in some countries, although African countries still owe far more to Western powers and financial institutions than to China, like World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Beijing practices like those of Western powers have resulted in a new wave of African dependency. If you look at other options, in the battle for global influence, China has found its contemporary African what Western powers discovered centuries ago. Beyond resources and market, it has garnered much needed diplomatic support in the United Nations and also other international organizations. As a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, it has frequently challenged Western-sponsored initiatives that focus on human rights and governance issues, turning a blind eye to human rights abuses, political repression, and corruption. Until recently, it has opposed political and military intervention in the internal affairs of other nations. However, as those political and economic interests in Africa have grown, it has recognized a need for peace and stability. As a result, Beijing has expanded its involvement in United Nations disaster relief, anti-piracy, and counter-terrorism operations. Its decades-long policy of non-interference in host countries' affairs has been replaced in recent years by interventionist policy aimed at protecting its economic interests. In the early 2000s, Beijing joined the United Nations peacekeeping operation for the first time, focusing on countries and regions where it had valuable investment and export market. In 2006, for instance, China pressed Sudan, an important oil partner, to accept an African Union United Nations peacekeeping force in Darfur. And in 2015, it worked with the East African Sub-Regional Organization and Western powers to mediate peace talks in South Sudan. In 2013, Beijing joined United Nations peacekeeping efforts in Mali, motivated by its interest in oil and uranium neighboring countries as well. If you look at other aspects, initially, Chinese refrained from military involvement in strife-ridden areas, preferring to contribute medical workers and also engineers. In 2007, it provided a 315-member engineering unit to the peacekeeping mission in Darfur, but no troops. However, as Beijing's global status and interest grew, so too did its military engagement. Chinese military presence was notable in the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Burundi, in 2004 to 2006 and the Central African Republic in 2014. In 2013, when Beijing supplied some 400 engineers, medical personnel and police to Mali, it also provided combat troops, marking the first time Chinese combat force had joined a United Nations operation. Similarly, in 2015, Beijing assigned 350 engineers, medical personnel and other non-combatants to the United Nations peacekeeping mission in South Sudan. However, it also contributed an infantry battalion composed of over 700 armed peacekeepers, the first Chinese infantry battalion ever deployed in the United Nations peacekeeping mission. By 2016, Beijing was contributing more military personnel to United Nations peacekeeping operation than any other permanent members of the Security Council. If you are new to this channel, we encourage you to subscribe and share our videos with your different network. The trend towards heightened Chinese political and military engagement in Africa culminated in 2017 when it joined France, the United States of America, Italy, and also Japan in establishing a military facility in Djibouti, which overlooks one of the world's most lucrative shipping lines. The Djibouti base was China's first permanent military facility outside its borders, strategically located on the Gulf of Aden, near the mouth of the Red Sea. The base has allowed Beijing to resupply Chinese vessels involved in UN anti-piracy operations and to protect Chinese nationals living in the region. It also has enabled the monitoring of commercial traffic and also along Chinese 21st century maritime Silk Road, which links countries from Oceania to the Mediterranean in a vast production and also trading network. This alliance will help China to safeguard its supply of oil, half of which originates in the Middle East and transit through the Red Sea and Djibouti's Bab el-Mandeb Strait to the Gulf of Aden. Most of Chinese export to Europe follow the same route. If you look at other areas as we close this episode, although United States decries Chinese imperialism, in reality it's fighting to maintain its role as the world's single hegemony power. Nonetheless, a growing number of African states are refusing to take sides in the new Cold War, rejecting Washington's claim that it alone, to point out, can protect their interests. Although Democrats and Republican administrations alike have promoted the notion that the United States must save the world from the evil empire that are threatening global security, it is the United States of America that has more than 750 bases in at least 80 countries, while China has only 3. It is the United States of America that has joined at least 15 foreign wars since 1980, while China has joined only 1. The United States of America security establishment favors containing or defeating China by bolstering military alliance abroad. It has established 29 military bases in Africa, its resource-rich areas, and have attracted the attention of both China and also other geopolitical partners in the region. According to the renowned Jeffrey Sachs, a Columbian University professor who has advised 3 United Nations Secretary General, has referred to the United States of America's view of global security as dangerously delusional and outmoded. outmoded. True security is not rooted in military ventures, he argues, but rather, he said, in the abandonment of hegemonic dreams and the building of alliances with other countries, large and small. Only then can the world begin to resolve the many environmental, energy, food and social crises that threaten the devastating and also all countries around the world. We want to thank you for watching. Hopefully we've informed you in regards to Chinese and the United States of America's battle in the region of the continent of Africa. Let us know what you think in regards to this new Cold War emerging in the region. And leave us a comment, subscribe and share the video with your different network. We are looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.